Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Play the Ball podcast. So, in this episode, we will be talking about the big news that came out earlier this week about Chelsea firing manager Frank Lampard and replacing him with former PSG manager Thomas Tuchel. So, in this episode, we will be looking at what went wrong with Frank and how what his relationship with his players and his off the field team has went about and how new manager Thomas Tuchel will adapt to the Premier League and how he will bring his ideas and implement to this extremely talented Chelsea squad. So I have Sai with me. Welcome, Sai. So if you remember, Sai, last episode, we were talking about, we were predicting when Lampard will get fired. So we were talk. I think I said he'll probably be given a couple more months. He was talking about Champions League, but he was fired sooner than we expected.
Yeah, exactly. Like we were saying, he needs a bit more time because this is actually a long-term project which they are trying to build. They are planning it for a 3-year Premier League title run, and for that you need a lot of time. And I thought this tough phases are going to come for a rookie manager because even the other rookie managers in the Premier League have faced this, and the other board has stuck with them. And I don't think Chelsea is that kind of a board. So we expected them to give him a bit more time, at least till February end or something. But then I'm not really surprised when the news came because that's how ruthless they are.
Oh yeah, I agree, Sai. Like you said, we have Ole in Manchester United and Arteta in Arsenal. They've been given time and they've been given the sort of been given the players they wanted, and there seems like a project going. But Roman Abramovich is not that kind of a person, is he? So he wants a project happening, but at the same time he wants his result. And the last ever since his takeover, it's been ruthless. I think Mourinho is the manager who lasted long under Abramovich, around 3 years, and that says a lot about the Chelsea as a club and how he runs things. But it has brought them results, so whatever is running with that, so he's successful with that.
Yeah, so I guess this is a nice segue to get started with what happened in the Lampard era for Chelsea first. So, what happened here? It's like, how will you define a Lampard era at Chelsea? Like, what were his tactics and how did he go about with his players and everything?
Yes, I will dive deep into what the Chelsea problems were. But before we get into that, I like to give our listeners a quick, a brief details about how Lampard sets his Chelsea side up. So generally, Lampard plays with a 4-3-3, right? You have your back four with one holding midfielder with an LCM, RCM, and you have the three forwards, right? So, and he has a target man in either Oliver Giroud or Tammy Abraham, who two strikers who are very capable of occupying both the defender, both the center back, so that they can take them off or drag them out of position, or they could do that, being a proper target man, or two strikers who could actually drop deep and help with the link up play and allow the wingers or the advanced midfielders to run forward and play off him, right? So like we said, in that 4-3-3 we had two eights. It's generally been Mason Mount and Havertz, two midfielders whose work rate is high, and they can advance to the opposition final third, and where they can affect the attack, the opposite, they can target the opposition goal with their contributions. And actually, that I always felt the signing of Thiago Silva was good because Zuma is someone who is a good central defender, I have to say, but he's a sort of person who reminds me a lot of Varane in the sense that he needs a proper leader alongside him, to properly guide him and all that. And Silva coming in has actually made Zuma perform really well. So he has been helping out him positionally, or helping make better decisions, live decisions, real time stuff. And you have both. Obviously, we have a summer signing, Chilwell, and a really good, in my view, really good fullback in Reece James, who loves to go forward at the first chance, right? So you have your replacement goalie in Mendy, who has been an upgrade to Kepa, which is, I have to say honestly, is not a big deal the way his form has been right in the last few months. And then obviously you have your wingers. So either both the wingers are pacing Pulisic or Werner, or if ZH is playing, so ZH occupies the right wing so that you can drift in and allow James to push forward. So in a way, a lot of this system does reminds you a lot about the 2004 when Mourinho came to take over Chelsea, right? So when he first came to take over Chelsea, so this is what he used to play. He used to play with a 4-3-3. He was probably the one who revolutionized after Arsene Wenger, right? Who brought in the single striker system with so Oliver Giroud used to play the same role like Drogba used to do, occupying the centre halves, dragging them out of positions, and you have two pacey wingers in Damien Duff and Arjen Robben, right? And you have your centre backs in Gallus and Ashley Cole later on who came in. So and two centre backs who are capable of passing the ball well as being rock solid. So in a way, there's a lot of similarities to Jose's first tenure formation, but with of course the modern takes that we find in a modern 4-3-3. So this is how Lampard, sets up his team, right? So this is just a brief overview of how Lampard, goes about that. That has been a system even in Derby. Actually, even in Derby, used to play with the same similar system with the 4-3-3, and he has brought the same system to Chelsea as well. So with that being said, right? So I like to, we'll stick to the on the field stuff, right? So Chelsea's been great from I think the last I think when they won again Leeds in December, they were the top of the group, and we were like Chelsea's living up to their hype of being champions, who are supposed to challenge Liverpool and City for the title and all that stuff. And it was going well. They were at the top of the group, but since December Chelsea has just won like 3 games in 9, and it's the remaining 6 games have not even been draws. It's been 5 losses in that. So actually, initially, until that point, so Chelsea were the second team behind Tottenham who considered the least. I think if I'm right, they considered only 10 goals in the first 10 games, and seemingly all going well. But then after that, it's just been massive depth. They've considered 13 the next 9, and they went from having the second best defense to the sixth worst defense in the league, right? And there's a lot of factors to it. Actually, we'll start from the defensive side. So starting with Mendy, actually we were praising on Mendy. When he came in, he has been having 5 to 6 continuous clean sheets in all competitions, all that. Chelsea seems to be clicking, but then Mendy's form has also been gone down. I think since December, his save percentage has only been like 70%, like less than 70%. I think close to 69%, which is okay in a general sense. But if you look at the context, because I think only City's Ederson has faced less shots than him, so 69% is bad. It's a very bad return for a goalkeeper in the top 6 club. So it's obvious that Mendy is just a short-term fix, and they really need to invest more. Unless I don't really see Kepa coming back, but in case if he suddenly gets in a spell of good form, they will need new goalkeeper for sure. And I think, as far as I know, Mendy has considered 7.7 goals per game more than he should, and all these defensive problems, right? So I don't see much fault in Silva and Thiago to be the back four. I mean, they have making mistakes, but they have been playing the same way. It's just I think it's a lot to do with the midfield as well. So actually, when you say defense, so how we credit the defenders and the goalkeepers for clean sheets, but actually a clean sheet I've always been of that view. Like a clean sheet should forbid the entire team, because your defense starts from the striker, right? Your striker starts the first sort of defensive wall, then comes your wingers, then comes your midfield, then your defense. Those are your last line of defenses, right? So Kante, since the lockdown, has been in poor form. He hasn't been great. He's the one who's supposed to give that protection to the defense, like the role that we have so used to seeing at Leicester or at Chelsea under Conte and all that. And he has been sloppy. He has been giving away the ball a lot, and he has not been in good form. His pressing has been erratic, and it's not just related to Kante. Mason Mount has been in good form, but even then, there seems to be no direction in the way Chelsea presses, right? So it just seems erratic. So there seemed like some sort of a system the first few games, but for some reason it's been erratic. It seems directionless. So there's been a concerning change in how they press in the midfield as well, and the biggest concern is from the midfield, and they're not able to assert dominance in games where they should be doing it, because they have a very good midfield. And especially if you're playing against bottom clubs like Fulham and all that, your midfield is supposed to dominate the game. They have not been anywhere close to that, and that's been a concern because it has been going on for a while, especially in the top biggest sides as well. So they have not won a game yet against the top six clubs so far, and they even lost against Arsenal as well recently, a 3-1. So the midfield has been out of form, so which has led to obviously the defense facing more and more attack from the opposition side. I think Chelsea has considered 3.5 goals more than expected at the start of the season, so that's concerning. 3.5 for a club that was supposed to be aiming at the top, should it's extremely high. So there's a big problem there. And again, so I was talking about the midfield, right? So again, if you take two, I'm just taking an example of two games, one against City and one against Arsenal. They had a lot of possession. I think against City, if I remember right, it was around 55% of the ball against a Pep Guardiola side, and against Arsenal, it was somewhere on the higher side, close to 60%, 50 to
Yeah, I
60%
guess
as well.
kind of in those games, the game was already over when they got a lot of positions, I guess. And
Yeah,
it was, I think it's 3-0 and also 3-0 in both the games where
I
they
agree.
started
Yeah.
having a lot of balls. And I think those managers were kind of comfortable with Chelsea having the ball because they had no idea how to come back from that big of a deficit.
I agree, Sai. The most of the this thing possession has come from after they've conceded the goals, and again, even with possessions, that they kept conceding chances to the team. So I think against City, they faced, in spite of higher possession, they faced around 18 shots against City and 15 shots against Arsenal, respectively. That's ridiculous number for a side supposed to be challenging on the top. And we were talking so much about midfield and the defense. The attack has been. Um, I don't know what. Okay, so how Lampard's biggest problem was not able to get the best out of Havertz, which we'll get to that. But Werner, it's not been the case. There have been games where I felt like Werner could be used better, but generally he has been playing Werner in a way that Werner likes to play. Even if system does not fit him well, he has played him in a position like an inside left forward or as a number 9, right? So, and it's just been a matter of confidence. He started well, Werner, actually. If you look at his numbers across all competitions, he has decent returns
Yeah,
for a
exactly.
young striker, who has come to Premier League, adjusting to the league. But he has been so poor in the finishing. I mean, we have been seeing a lot of videos and clips about him having that shocking, miss against Brighton. But he's generally been, he has not scored in the last 12 games, and he actually has a very high XG, is around 6.8. He should be scoring around there. But actually in the last, he has only scored 4 in the Premier League, which is like 2.8 higher than his return, which is 4 goals, right? Again, if you divided like the rest of Chelsea, if you divided pre-December, post-December, even pre-December, he was actually taking 2.4 shots per 90, and now it's increased. After since then, it's increased to 2.9 per 90, but there's been absolutely no return. There's been no goals, nothing, and his shot conversion rate is just 25%, a poor return. It's actually a shocking return for someone of his quality. I'm a big fan of Timo Werner, and I generally felt like it's like I said, like in some games, I did feel like Frank was playing him in like a playmaking winger role, which is not really his strength. He was more like, get the ball to him in transition and ask him to cut inside and take a shot at the goal. That's his strength. Actually, against Leipzig, he had quite a lot of goals
Yeah, and I
like
guess
that. And
even in Leipzig, his shots numbers are actually pretty high. I guess he was close to having 3.6 shots per game when he was in Leipzig
yeah,
across the
yeah.
2 good seasons, and almost all his statistics have dropped uh, in this year. But I guess overall, if you ask me, both my opinion, both on Havertz and Lampard, Havertz, which will come into it in detail. I guess though there was a decline in Werner's form, I wouldn't say it was so worrying because we did see that he was getting into the right positions. Right? It was just about his finishing touch and his finishing touch. And yeah, that was going to come eventually. But other than that, I guess he had a fine season, to be honest, not a disaster one like Havertz did. Would you disagree with that?
For his standards, yes, because I expect a lot from Werner. I always expected Havertz to struggle, to be honest, because one thing, you need to get the system right with him, and also that he's just a young kid, a German who's coming to a new club and is getting a new language, new culture. So, and he's playing in a very unique position as well. So I did expect him to struggle, but I expected Werner with the way he plays to like hit the ground running, which he did, to be fair. But it's just a matter of confidence. Where the striker is just like a goalkeeper, right? So if there's no confidence, you don't shoot well. And you were talking about Leipzig, right? So he always has this habit of cutting and shooting it, and you were saying that. And in the very similar cases in Chelsea, he has had a very poor return at that as well. He has, I think, major percentage of his goals have come like that against for Leipzig, but it's not been the case for Chelsea as well. So there's a confidence issue there. I'm expecting him to fire soon. It's just a being out of form. It's like that. Werner, I think, should do okay. It's Havertz that I was more worried about.
Yeah, like we're talking about Havertz. I guess even his stats drop has been like quite shocking. Like he had around 2 shots per game, and he was pressing really well in that. And more than his statistics drop, I guess it was all down to Lampard on figuring out how to use Havertz perfectly, because when he was playing in Leverkusen, he was mostly the second striker who makes deep runs into the box, like and kind of doesn't really move based on him. He does create quite a number of chances, but then he was playing more like a second striker where he had a lot of opportunities to come and cut back and score the goals. But then I've seen Lampard use him in variety of positions and did not get any return from him in any positions, and that's actually a worrying thing for a coach, because you I don't know whose decision was it to get Havertz, or is it a system-based signing, or did they think that this is a guy who's a hot prospect, who's going to be one of the best players in the world for the next 10 years? Let's tie him up in Chelsea and like let's figure it out once he comes in. Or is it the kind of signing they said, okay, we see a gap in this position, we need to go and improve, and Havertz is the player who can do this job for us? Because if it is the latter, we are not seeing the returns, and if it's the former, I think that's a worrying thing about Chelsea's recruitment.
Oh, I agree, Sai. It's a really a big source of concern, and that's probably one of the biggest factors I would say that Lampard was sacked. He was not able to get the best out of Havertz. Like he tried, like you said, they were tried in a lot of positions, 8 as a 10, false 9, right side, but and even as a CM. So it's not been very successful. He's not able to get much out of Havertz, and even when he did start playing well, he got COVID as well. So there was that. So like I personally, we have been facing with Pogba as well. It took him a while to get back into shape, fitness and shape after suffering from COVID. So that also like brought him down. There's a lot of question marks, Sai, about whose signing was it. But whoever signing is, for me, Havertz is one of the biggest young talents in the world right now. I was a big fan at Leverkusen over the last couple of seasons, actually, ever since he was 18, and always been a big fan. And I was actually super jealous when Chelsea bought him, but it's all about finding the right system to get the best out of him, best of him, right? Like, and his form is a major concern for the hierarchy, and that's, like I said, it's one of the biggest concerns or reasons why Frank was sacked as well. And along with that, ZH has also been like injured often, and that does not help his case as well. So, and statistically, if you look at it, Lampard has a second worst win percent as well, since Roman Abramovich took over, right, in 2003, and he has the worst points per game as well. So not a lot going on for Frank actually. So on the field, there are a lot of factors in that he couldn't get the best out of one. The rumors about him losing, a couple of people's respect, or losing the dressing room a bit. So a lot of factors I like from on the field aspect of things.
Yeah, I think you summarized it pretty well overall. And we always felt that this is kind of a tough job for a manager who's coming in with just 1 year of managerial experience. And I guess he kind of overachieved in the first season, whether it's is doing or the other clubs around struggling, because even last year they had poor run of form in the end, and they kind of scraped one or two wins in the last weeks to get into the Champions League. And also Leicester like massively dropped from the third position. They were cruising in, I guess, even ahead of Manchester City at some point. And that was a weird Premier League season last year where there were a lot of clubs around who were contending for top four till the last 4 or 5 weeks of the game week, and then they dropped. So when you look at it as a whole in the last season, I guess at least the position wise, he kind of overachieved, ignoring all the other stuff which is happening around in other clubs. And when you put that kind of a pressure on you in that first season, I guess the expectation is just going to be higher because let's say the narrative surrounding it was that they lost Hazard, and they are in a transfer ban, and this was the narrative going around it, and they wanted a manager to kind of get some good vibes around the club, and Lampard seemed to be the right fit. Let's say he achieved a decent sixth place finish and a FA Cup final spot, and that would have been okay with the board's expectation. The next season would be like, okay, get the top four, go closer to Liverpool and City, and then we'll figure it out from the next season. So next season we'll go on for the title. But then when you achieve top four and when you go to the FA Cup final, and it looks like, okay, you already reached the second step. Now you just have to move to the next step, which is title challenge. And we'll give you all the tools you want because we have a gazillion rupees in our bank account. So I guess that expectation factor played a massive part in sacking Lampard, because I don't think it would have been the case if last season had gone to the narratives which were around Chelsea.
I agree, sir. Actually, there's a very interesting point that you pointed out about getting good vibes back into the club. I think that's a very interesting point, and I think that's true in a lot of sense because hiring Lampard was always a risk. A manager who just had one season with Derby, he's just learning his trade, directly a top four club job, and you actually mentioned very good. I really think so. I really think that because of the transfer ban and they just needed somebody like Lampard, who's like a legend of the club, to bring back the vibes, like you say, and get the fans into good terms with them, and because of the ban, get some good academy players through, and he has done that. He has actually done really well in the first season. He managed to get some really good academy products at Tomori, who's actually now moved on to AC Milan, which is unfortunate. And your Reece James, Mason Mount are actually starters right now, regular starters under him. And Tammy Abraham, who technically not officially, he didn't bring it up, but he's still an academy product as well. So, and Billy Gilmore, highly rated center midfielder. So he has done a good job, like you said, like a first season, and he did exactly what they expected. And the pressure started coming when they decided to spend a huge amount of money, and they were expected to push on for a title. And honestly, I did not expect them to expect Lampard to do that. This is just going to be a temporary phase, like just somebody to get through them the transition. And I think when Lampard took the job, he was well aware of it too. I think from what the Athletic reports, he had a job offer for a lot more money somewhere else, but he chose this because it's very difficult when the club you love the most come with an offer for a job, possibly his dream job as well, and he could not turn it down, and he knew the risk. He knew how Chelsea political structure is in the club. He knew the politics. He knew how ruthless they are, and he decided to give it a shot. So credit to him for that. But it was always going to be a risk, right? It was always
Yeah,
going to
I
be a risk.
guess even when they were signing him, I guess there were a couple of Chelsea hierarchies, couple of people from Chelsea hierarchy who kind of had the doubt that if Lampard is really the way forward. And I guess those people still exist in the club, and that's their narratives seem to be right. Now let's get into the off-field stuff, because I think that's where a lot of drama happened, and it's not surprising when you deal with the Chelsea board. And like, what exactly happened there, Neeraj? Like, what is going on? And
Oh, Sai, trust me, when I first heard about all the politics, when the rumors about Sir Lampard sacking, I was actually not surprised because it's Chelsea, but because it was Lampard, I didn't really expect that much. So, apparently his relationship with Marina Granovskia, who is Chelsea's technical director, had like completely deteriorated, like remarkably. So there are a lot of things, that he had to take. Like we were saying that, how he was aware of the risk to take the job and all that. So he had to take a lot of things in his stride, accept things that is beyond his control. Like even he is actually, Sai, I don't know if you knew this, but he was not paid enough technically because his wages negotiation was out of his hand, and he was paid less than what usually another manager would get. And there are a lot of other stuff. So, and I think the main thing which he was not happy with the involvement of loan technical coach, Chelsea's loan technical coach, Eddie Newton, in the daily proceedings. And there's a lot of tensions there. And when in January, when Eddie Newton did move on to another club, and that just sparked even more fire between the relationship with Lampard and Marina. So apparently, at least from what the Athletic reports, it seems that the tension started long time, close to exactly 1 year back. When he wanted to bring in ZH Werner, and actually even Arsenal's Aubameyang as well, because at the time he was struggling. There are a lot of issues behind his contract signing as well. So to push them towards the 1920 season strongly, and he could not get those targets. Although February, Chelsea did sign ZH, but he would not come until the next summer. That is basically this season. So he had a problem with that. And I think what made it worse was the entire Kepa situation. And from what I've read, it's Marina and the board wanted Lampard to manage Kepa better so that he can get back into form, because he's a 71 million investment size, so that's not a small thing. So they need to get the best out of him, right? So, but you have to feel for Frank there, because after a series of high profile mistakes, Lampard cannot. I don't think any sane manager could trust Kepa even a little bit, and asked him, and he immediately put in for a replacement as well. So this just again brought tensions in the relationship. And somewhere around that February March was when the Chelsea board led by Marina was looking for bringing another manager. She, from what's being reported, she was also interested in bringing Pochettino in, or Nagelsmann or Tuchel as plan B as well, in case if things go even further down. Because at the time they could not do much about Lampard because he was getting results. They were the top four. They were having a good run in the FA Cup as well. And beyond that,
Yeah, I guess even in this summer after the FA Cup loss, I guess it was even reported that Lampard would have quit if it was any other club other than Chelsea, because that says a lot. Because that's actually a positive season, if you ask me, from where they started, and to quit from there, that says the amount of pressure he was under from the board.
Oh yeah, that is that's an interesting point, say, because Lampard, who loves his club a lot, to finish top four and FA Cup final, and say that he was willing to walk out, says a lot about the situation and the tensions there, right? There's a other fact, and can you imagine Chelsea, who spent like close 200 plus million to buy so many quality players, and for what is being reported, it's apparently only Chilwell was his only first choice target, right? So that's shocking, because like we have all known, the relationship between Chelsea and Declan Rice, right? So Declan Rice, for the listeners who do not know, was Chelsea's youth academy product who was rejected by the club, and now he's probably one of the best, if not the best, DMs in the league. And Lampard really wanted to bring Declan Rice back, and that just irritated the Chelsea board, because they did not want to get back. They did not want a Pogba situation where they get back an academy player or a reject for a higher price. And it is also mentioned that he wanted also Burnley's Tarkowski as well as centre back. He was not given that as well. And a lot of issues I look at the relationship. So tensions has been building. And there were also some reports that some players were not given tactical instructions for quite some time, and felt left out of Lampard's trusted preferred group of players. Especially from what especially Kepa was quite vocal about it, which I doesn't make sense. I mean, the way he was playing, there's no way he could be picked, But that's for
But
that's an
you
entirely
know,
different thing, right?
I don't think it's just Kepa who did not get any support, because it says that he had a preferred likable guys who were there in the dressing room, and I guess even every manager has that. Like even Arteta, Pep, Klopp, even Ole, everybody has the players who they really like, But then to completely ignore the other players or completely, disregard them, it's bad, right? They have
It's
their own
bad. It's bad.
careers.
Yeah.
They want to progress. Like at least they want to know where they're going wrong so that they can correct and come into the system. It's like completely freezing them without even giving them any idea or without even uttering a single word to them. It's kind of bad on a manager's side, and also not having any sorts of thing to hold on to. Like, let's say you are someone like a Jurgen Klopp, who's won a Champions League, who's won league titles in Dortmund and uh, in Liverpool. If someone like that does it to you, then you have something like, okay, I'm an experienced manager, I know what I'm doing. So there is something you can hold on to when the board asks you a question. But then for a rookie manager, you need to have the dressing room intact, because when something goes against you, there's nothing to hold back. And I guess that's one of the big mistakes which Lampard did,
Yeah. Yeah.
was to
I
completely
agree,
freeze
Cyrus.
the other
But
players.
there's a bit of there's a bit of Mourinho in him, isn't there? It's obvious that not only has he influenced the player, but as a manager as well. So when I read
Yeah,
the
exactly.
reports, it felt a lot of Mourinho vibes there.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I can totally get it.
Yeah, so these are the main reasons basically why Lampard was sacked, and especially after the Leicester game, so Frank knew his time was up, so he was already he was shaking the players' hands to thank them for their efforts under him, and so yeah, these are the cases. So unfortunately, Lampard he knew the risk when he took the job, and with the tensions building already, I'm pretty sure he wanted to leave, get some more experiences, and then that it was not going well for him in the club. And Chelsea is not the sort of clubs to who will afford to give you time to build something special or something like that. But he has done well, if you ask me, especially first season. We were talking about the first season about the academy and um, getting top four and FA Cup well, and like, he had a really good first season. But then after such an investment, he was already under immense pressure with everything. So not too surprising, I must say. I mean, I'm surprised with the timing of the sacking, but yeah, I'm not surprised by the sack. I think I'm pretty sure they waited until the Luton game so that he could go out with the win. So it made sense why he made Mason Mount captain, and the youth academy players well. Abraham scored a hat trick. So I think they wanted to make sure that he gets a win before he's relieved from his duties.
Yeah, I guess that's quite a good summary of Lampard's time at Chelsea. It had his own ups and downs. Like, he had his great moments as a manager, and it's tough times too. And that pretty much happens in your first or second job. Now that Lampard is finally out of Chelsea, now that uh, like, we just hope the best for him. Like, we hope he kind of recovers from the mental stress he was under right now. Like, when everything is all said and done, what should Lampard do, Neeraj? Like, where do you think he should go? What should be the next steps for
I
Lampard?
Yeah, I think he'll probably take some time off, take some timing because, like we said, like you mentioned, he was under a good pressure and mental stress, so he'll probably take some time off. But he'll always be a very wanted man in the media, like Sky, BT, Amazon. He's a smart pundit. He's a very smart and intelligent man with an exceptional footballing brain. So it's at least for the time being, at least he will end up with the media. I think it's a good option for him. But I think when he feels the time is right, he will get back to coaching again. I think what he can do is work under a experienced manager, learn some trades, or he could do a Gerard. Go to a lower league or go to the championship or like a clubs like Newcastle or somewhere like that where you can afford to make their mistakes and then you can learn from them, right? So it's not like a club like Chelsea who is always under immense pressure to win, win, win. So you can afford to make mistakes at clubs like this and then you learn from them, right? So or like I said, he could always work under a manager like Pep or someone experienced, right, where he can learn and fine tune his tactics with where he went wrong, what he can do, learn management better, something like that. So again, I still like Lampard no matter what people say. I think he's really a bright young manager because I've seen some games where he's tactically done really well. So there is some potential there and really good manager. He'll make it. I'm sure he'll make it. He's a smart man after all, and I'm pretty sure he'll get back to the drawing board soon. So wishing Lampard all the best, and we'll see what he does next.
Yeah, like, I don't know if he'll necessarily go be an assistant to someone, because, like, I guess everybody has kind of this bit of an ego, because once they are established as a first team manager, it's kind of a downgrade to go and work as an assistant. Although that's not really a bad idea, because if you learn from the likes of Pep, if you have a chance to learn from the likes of Pep Guardiola, it's nice. But I guess that's really unlikely. But I do have a bit of a good proposition, like a plan. I guess you should take the job at Celtic. Like Neil Lennon is actually under a bit of pressure right now, and I guess the sack is coming very soon, and Celtic will be looking for a new manager. And we all know what Celtic does in previously. Like they did hire some good progressive managers. They did pay them a lot. Even Brendan Rodgers, who had a fantastic couple of seasons at Chelsea, he was paid really well. So the payment is not an issue. And we all see what Steven Gerrard is doing at Rangers, right? He's doing exceptionally well. And Scottish League is kind of a place which is not completely similar to the Premier League. It's totally not at the level of Premier League. But I guess that is the league where there is not really much of a competition for you to, go and embarrass yourself there. And I guess with Celtic, you can, no matter what, how worse you do, you'll pretty much be in the top two spots. And that's the place where he can learn his trades. I guess that's a good, they have a good academy, they have good talents there. And I guess Celtic job will be a good, interesting thing to take. If he gets
That's
a
a good option.
championship, if he gets a championship club, I don't think Derby is there anytime soon. But if he gets a good championship club, he can take the job. But I guess managing a club like Celtic is really good, because Celtic is actually a big club when you consider English football, and that kind of mimics what you will do in a high-profile job, because Celtic is a big club in Scotland, and that is kind of good, because that'll give him a good experience, and he can make, as you said, he can afford to make mistakes and learn from there. So I guess that's a good thing to take, because I don't see him getting any top jobs, like jobs in Premier League as of now. Although I did read somewhere that the Brighton's hierarchy kind of like Lampard, but I don't think they're going to sack Graham Potter, because they are building something there. So I do believe that Celtic job, which comes right into my mind right now, but also maybe in Germany also, because that's actually a good place where you can build an attacking football style. So those two are the places I would look for if I am Frank Lampard.
In interesting options. I agree, really interesting options. So the lot of options for Lampard. So we'll see where he goes from here. So now that Lampard's fired, so a couple of days back, it's been announced, that Thomas Tuchel, former PSG manager, will take over Chelsea. And interesting choice, because I personally felt interesting because as a manager, I'm a big fan of Tuchel, but he has had his past problems with he has the last two clubs, at least with the boards or with some members of the board as well. So, Sai, what do you make of the appointment?
Yeah, like I got kind of went into a deep dive on uh, Tuchel's career from the beginning. But first, let's look into why they actually came into Tuchel's job. Like they were actually big fans of Mauricio Pochettino, and I guess if Poch was still available, he would be the manager of Chelsea. But then when he went to PSG, they started looking for alternatives, and I guess they really liked the idea of a German philosophy of football, because they see what Klopp has done for German footballers and German school of football, and the success he had in the Premier League. Like similar to what Arsene Wenger did for French managers early days, Klopp did for German managers. And that's the reason why they wanted Nagelsmann a lot. But then it was really difficult to persuade him out of Leipzig right now. And is still under contract for Leipzig, and Leipzig are not going to let Nagelsmann leave now. And ideally, the next step was to bring in Ralph Ragnick, who's kind of like the guru for all these young, like these current crop of German coaches. They offered him an interim role, which I guess it's kind of bad, because when you consider the contract Tuchel is in, which is 18 months, I guess Ragnick would have done a good job with those 18 months as well. But then obviously Ragnick would not be interested to take an interim role, so he rejected them. And the next ideal guy was to go for Thomas Tuchel. Interestingly enough, like when Antonio Conte was sacked, they when they were started when they started looking for managers to replace Antonio Conte, they actually interviewed Tuchel, and some of them really liked Tuchel a lot. But then they were not completely convinced with that, because his previous stints were in Dortmund and Mainz where it did not end well, and they had reservations on his tactics also a bit, so they did not get him. But then they finally landed on. They had good impression on Tuchel, and he was under the radar. So I guess you would say he was kind of the fourth option right now, and with the contract he's in, I guess he is under good pressure of getting the best result the next season, or he's gone again, right? Do you think this is a good managerial appointment, or do you think they could have gone for a bit more a pragmatic manager, like let's say an Allegri or someone who is still available for a management job? What do you make of this
Mm,
move?
Sai, because personally, it's like I said, like personally, I'm a big fan of Thomas Tuchel because I think I'm sure we'll be talking more about this, but I genuinely think he's one of the the genius managers out there in the modern world right now. And when you have a world class option there who plays attacking football and who gets results, who gets titles, who he has a history of improving teams wherever he has gone. So the attraction to not get him is a bit too high, too low, to be honest. And Allegri is a world class and actually, in my opinion, underrated manager as well. But it's like what we say. What is our definition of attracting football or attacking football? And Allegri, it's along the same mold of Mourinho or Simeone, who plays defensive football. And I don't think the Chelsea board would be too fan of him. So I would say it's a right appointment. We'll get more into that because he has had his past problems with the other
Yeah,
clubs boards as
we'll
well.
get into it.
So yeah, we'll get into that.
So let's dive into the brief history of what made Thomas Tuchel, right? He was actually a
Yeah.
good player coming through the ranks in Germany, but then at the age of 25, he picked up a knee injury and his career kind of ended there. He surprisingly he met Ralph Ragnick in his early career, and Ragnick actually pushed him into management. He offered him some scouting jobs, and that's where he got into this management thing. So he actually started his stint with Augsburg too, and he did pretty well over there. He also coached their youth team. They also won the youth cup. So he already had the knack of working with really really young talents who are very raw and bringing them into good potential, and that was very impressive. So he got a job at Mainz, and if you look at it's really interesting because he completely followed Klopp everywhere. Like when Klopp left Mainz, he came into Mainz. So Klopp left to Dortmund, and he was managing Mainz. When Klopp left Dortmund, he came into Dortmund. So that's how it was there. And like in this Chelsea's managerial list, there was Nagelsmann, right? He actually helped Nagelsmann start his coaching career. He offered him scouting jobs for the club in Mainz, and that's how Nagelsmann even started his coaching job because and even Nagelsmann went to a career-ending injury, so they kind of had the sympathy for each other. So Tuchel helped Nagelsmann to start his coaching career, and his mind stint was actually very very good because the club was newly promoted. They were not particularly the best side, not even the mid-table sides. They, if you kind of ask me to compare the two sides from the Premier League standards, I would say they were in the range of a Brighton, something like that. So that's where they are, and they were struggling to keep them afloat. But then he kind of built a good tactical identity there. And if you look into Tuchel's first tactics, I guess here he did not have this uh, tools. He wanted to build an expansive, a full Persian-based style. So he went into a more pressing oriented style in Mainz, and he developed Andre Scholler there and also a couple of good other players. And the first season, he had a good ninth place finish. And in this first stint, he also had wins against the big sides like Dortmund or uh, Bayern also. So that's actually a good thing. And one interesting stat which I found is that during his old fire tenure at Mainz, he got the most points other than Bayern, Schalke, Dortmund, and Leverkusen. That says a lot. And even he got more points per game than Klopp did at Mainz. So he kind of has the knack to work with that limited potential too, because he's not the kind of guy who expects you to give him everything he wants to build a site. He has the talent to work with the limited proposal as well. But then he he's known for being a very demanding coach. Like his training methods are very intensive, and it's everything like that. And that doesn't necessarily come as a good manager, I would say, because you kind of like we see this with some teams, right? They do go under the manager fatigue. They're kind of tired of his philosophies, and if they don't have a good relationship with the manager, it's gonna go down under. And that kind of happened in Mainz also. Also, they his relationship with the boards were not particularly great because he wanted more ambition from the board to keep pushing forward, because he did have a good seventh place finishes, and he did take him to the Europa League's group stages, and he was hoping that they would build further there. But then the board had different plans. They were not ready to invest, and they kind of had the mix up of ideas over there. So he asked for his contract to be terminated, and they terminated his contract. So he kind of took 1 year off, and learned a good statistics and all these stats part of football. So he took 1 year sabbatical to learn that. And from there, when Klopp left Dortmund, he had the job to come back to Dortmund. And he also had some good offers from some other clubs, but he chose Dortmund because he knew that Dortmund, he will have the talent at his disposal to, uh, achieve the highest level. So if you look at his whole Mainz stats, right, he had 72 wins, 46 draws, and 64 losses from 182 games with a 40% win rate. A 40% win rate will look a bit weird when you look at, but in context, Mainz are not a side which you expect to win 40% of the games. So that's actually an impressive stint there. He had a better stint there than Jurgen Klopp. And when he eventually replaced Klopp at Dortmund, that's when he truly became mature as a coach. That's where he started, developing his tactical identity and tactical flexibility. And we know Klopp is a kind of a manager. Klopp and Pep are the managers who have the fixed system and they do not tweak it much. Klopp with his usual high pressing, heavy metal football, and Pep with his, positional play. So that positional tiki-taka style play. But then Tuchel is not that. Like, though he comes from this German crop of managers who are known for heavy tempo, high line, high pressing style of football, he does take inspiration from Guardiola as well. He has a bit of both, some calm style of football. Also when he needs to press, he knows how to press. So that's the tactical versatility which is really impressive from him. And he has known to rebuild the sides as well. Like in Dortmund, he promoted Christian Pulisic, who kind of had a breakthrough season under him, and that he's going to manage Christian Pulisic here as well. So that's a really optimistic sign for one of the Chelsea's top signings. And during his stint at Dortmund, it was really tough to win the league titles because Pep Guardiola was also there in Bayern Munich. So he did achieve a good league versions and everything like that. And like if you ask me, the one good thing, like one impressive thing which I saw was that Aubameyang was performing at a ridiculous level under Thomas Tuchel, where he scored 56 goals in 63 league appearances, and with Pulisic and Dembele in the wings. So if you if you juxtapose it to Chelsea, right, it's kind of says what Werner can expect, right? Because if you ask me, I would say Aubameyang and Werner are quite similar. They are the kind of strikers who look forward to make those runs, and though Aubameyang is more mature and more intelligent in finding the spaces inside the box, but I guess the overall profile of it, you can say they're both the same. So I guess that's an impressive sign for Timo Werner. Like he can be optimistic, and during his last stint, it did not go quite well. Like this is where the problems of him and his ego comes into picture, because there were lots and lots of disagreements from the board level and Tuchel. Like we know that Dortmund is kind of a club who sells their star players and generates money through that. Tuchel was not really a big fan of them. Like he had some disagreements in selling the star players, especially to the rivals, where they had no chance of winning if you sell your good best players or rivals, right? But even Tuchel wanted to get rid of some old players, and uh, he had some ego issues with them, but that did not come well with the Dortmund board. So there was a lot of clashes on who to sign, who to leave, and everything like that. Also, one of the best scouts in world football, Sven Mislintat, who was one of the main reasons for the Dortmund's impressive run that time, because he was the one who unearthed these gems from little leagues. He had a clash with him also in signing of some guy who he did not want, but Mr. Dad felt that was the right signing for Dortmund to make. So they had a spat in the training ground, and Mr. Dad was eventually banned by Thomas Tuchel to come into the training ground. So that's how worse his last stint was in terms of personal ego clashes. And apart from that, like the overall narrative around Tuchel is like this, right? He's known for his superb tactical versatility. He's known for his good building a good system and everything like that. But then the off pitch side of Tuchel is kind of difficult to deal with. But yeah, we'll come into this more later. But then if you look at his Dortmund career, he had 68 wins, 23 draws, and 17 defeats in 108 games with an impressive 63% win rate. That's actually really good. And his points per game was also higher than what Klopp achieved when he was at Dortmund. So I don't think we need to discredit him for not winning the title over there. Yeah, Klopp was a world-class coach. He did win the title, but then when he was managing, there was Pep Guardiola's Bayern side, who were looked like one of the best sides in Europe. So I'm not discrediting him for not winning the league. He did win the DFB Pokal finals. So I don't know if you would call that as a failure stint over there just because he didn't win trophies like Klopp did. But so I would call that this Dortmund thing a big success. So after he got sacked eventually after the DFB Pokal finals, so he went to PSG on a 2-year deal. Uh, that's where I guess he kind of matured. He kind of learned from his mistakes. He became a good manager. Neymar especially had good praises for him. Even uh, Mbappe had good words to say about him. Verratti, everybody liked him really well. So his first stint was not particularly impressive when you consider the domestic tournaments where he got knocked out United in the Champions League in their famous 3-1 win in Paris, and then he got knocked out in the quarterfinals of Coupe de League. But then he did eventually win the league title. Uh, he amassed like an incredible number of points in his two stints in PSG, but eventually not a big surprise. He had another spat with Leonardo, where they again had the clashes in transfers. Like he wanted some players to go. Leonardo did not approve it. He was actually particularly open about his weaknesses in fullback region, and Leonardo didn't fancy it. Like we know, right? did not have a good fullback system, so that's where they kind of fought. And he also said openly in an interview that does not look like he's some sort of a coach. He looked like some sort of a minister who's managing a country, because that's how it is. Like it's the entire country who's managing the club. So uh, obviously a PhD stint is really tough when you consider the pressure you are there and to win a lot there. And the best thing he did probably there was to like build his reputation, is that he went as far as any PSG manager ever did, where he reached the Champions League final, which he potentially could have even won because it was such a close game where both the sides had great number of chances to win, but then finally Bayern scraped it through. So that would have been a massive boost to his resume, but then he still had a great stint with PSG. He had 95 wins, 13 draws, and 19 defeats, where his points, he had 75% win rate, which he kept on improving. And his points per game was around 2.37, which is actually the best in the PSG era, tied with his predecessor Unai Emery. So this is actually his overall stint for his managerial career from start to finish. And I guess we kind of see a pattern over here, right, from what he does and what happens.
Yeah, it's quite an impressive career, no, Sai, like coming from PS, especially his work with Mainz or something is like very impressive, taking them to Europa League as well, like building on from Klopp's work. And yeah, maybe he might be disappointed that, having taken PSG to the finals, they lost to admittingly a very extremely powerful Bayern team as well. But with Tuchel comes perfection, and there have been lots of stories about how he, you know, coaches players for improvement, isn't that, Sai?
Yeah, exactly. Like there are a lot of players who kind of had a breakthrough under him. Like he's he is known for his meticulous approach and his unique training techniques. Even something which is going on in social media viral right now is that they kind of train with a small ball, a small tennis ball, sorry, a small football, which is different because we haven't seen that yet. At least I haven't seen that yet. So there have been records of him having a good a training routine and a good, like we saw what happened with Lampard, right? There were players who were complaining about them not having a good tactical plan going into the game, so they were kind of clueless on what to do. I don't think that's going to be a problem with Tuchel. So he's known for this meticulous approach to get those little details, and even he knows to he gives a tennis ball to the defender's hands and he asks them to hold it in the training because so that they can avoid pushing and pulling and those sorts of giving those nasty fouls away. So that's the meticulous. That's how meticulous Tuchel is, and and as I said, he gave breakthrough to a lot of players when in his Dortmund and Mainz days.
That's quite an interesting narrative, isn't it, Sai? So let me ask you, Sai. So with all his tactical perfection and acumen and how he's very flexible with the systems and all that, how do you see him, fitting with this Chelsea squad? Because I think one of the main reasons he was hired, like you already talked about, is his German football that they're fans of. Likes of Werner or Howard's benefiting it, as well as Pulisic, who has worked under him. So how do you see Tuchel's football fitting with this Chelsea side?
And I guess this is a good hire in a way if you consider his tactical versatility. He is, as I said earlier, he is a German coach, but then he's not completely a German coach like a Jurgen Klopp because as I say, he gets a lot of influence from Guardiola. He's known to, have his calm, slow build-up phase as well, and he also has the identity of building a pressing side. So I guess this adaptation is going to be quite good for Chelsea because he did not immediately implement his ideas. He can slowly take it into where he wants to go, and his formation is also varying from club to club. In Dortmund, he was mainly known to use a 4-2-3-1, where he had around 24 games. He played a 4-2-3-1, and his 4-3-3 was just 6 games. But then when you look at his PSG stint, 4-3-3 was the most played formation in PSG. So that says that he knows to build a lineup for a good side. And there was not, he's a guy who, keeps rotating the starting 11 a lot. I don't think it's a good thing for FPL managers. Like, now we know where he gets his influence from Guardiola, right? He's known to rotate his squad a lot, and I guess the interesting stat which I read is that the PSG midfield of Ander Herrera, Marco Verratti, and Idrissa Gueye, those three was his most preferred midfield three, and even they started only 4 games together. So that says how he keeps rotating the sides. So he is known to, so since Chelsea have a massive squad with massive talents, and even in this attacking areas where there is like a lot of talent at disposal, I guess everybody is going to get their chances. Everybody is going to keep rotating. So I don't think the likes of Mason Mount or Callum Hudson-Odoi they need to be really worried because they are going to get those chances because of the rotations. And I guess the problem where I see is that how he is going to use the likes of Havertz and how he's going to use the likes of Kante because he's known to have a number 6 who's good at distributing the ball from the deep, who's kind of calm and collecting the ball under pressure and who's kind of good at releasing the ball into the final third. I don't necessarily think Kante is that kind of a player to play in the number 6 because the style of the destructive number 6, I guess there is not that much right now. So I don't. Let's wait and see if he uses Kante in a more number 8 free role where he is given the ability to like what Sarri did with Kante a little bit, where he can go freely, where he can roam around the pitch, do this nasty work, and also progress the ball. And I guess Jorginho is going to have a good couple of games under him because Jorginho is that kind of a player who he liked earlier, and he likes Antonio Rudiger as well. So Rudiger is going to get good time. So I guess his transition is going to be quite easy, but the main problem is just his contract. It is just under 18 months. So does he go for building it for next season or going for a long term, or does he immediately wants his results, or does he immediately want to build his identity? I guess that's where the line comes under. So let's see what happens with his tactical system. But I guess his versatility is going to really help this Chelsea squad.
I agree, Sai. So there was this one quote from Tuchel that I heard that he sees Kante as more of a midfielder who plays in a double pivot, and I could not agree more because I'm not a fan of Kante. Like we were mentioning about Kante playing in that number six hole in a 4-3-3. I was never a big fan of that. He's always that one, who thrives in that double pivot role where he can go make recoveries, tackles, distribute to his midfield partners and all that. So when I saw this quote, I'm like, okay, he's going to use Kante properly. And it's going to be interesting to see. Like you said, he rotates the players a lot. So he has different options in Kante. Jorginho is probably going to make a claim in the squad again. And Kovacic as well. So what's more interesting to see is how it'll affect Mason Mount, especially he was one of Lampard's favorites. Like he used to, start most of the games at least. So and for Tuchel's first game for Chelsea, he went for experience as well. So he dropped Mason Mount for the game. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he uses Mount from now, really. And we saw the first game against Wolves. A massive change, wasn't there? Size? It was like a quad, close to 850 passes, and
Yeah,
there are a lot. It is amazing intensity and energy in the pitches, and I think in the final third there were around 16 recoveries in the final third. That's insane. But although it's a good sign, it's a really good sign. But you always sack a manager, and there's always this blip perform where everything goes well. Could be that the problem for Tuchel is getting that sustained, getting. And but what I was most impressed with it, how Havertz played that game. I felt like Havertz was playing his natural game. He was playing in that free role from the midfield, like dropping deep, moving wide, overlapping Giroud, pushing to both the flanks, and making that ghost runs beyond the defense while Giroud was occupying the defense. I really like Havertz, especially the first half. I thought he was really good. He looked more and more like the player we know. So it'll be interesting to see how Tuchel uses his versatility like we
yeah.
were talking about.
Even he admitted in the press conference that with the limited number of training he had to go with the experience, and that's why he had to drop some the likes of Mason Mount. But then I don't think Mason Mount needs to be really well, because he's actually a really good player, and this it's no wonder that the managers under him like him a lot, because he's a good hard worker off the ball as well. So I guess he's going to get a good number of game minutes. And the thing, I kind of saw some of the ideas which he wants to implement over there. It was interesting to see Callum Hudson-Odoi like implemented as a wing back kind of role, where Ziyech and him were kind of linking up there, and Jorginho sitting back, and Kovacic kind of finding these half spaces to give the ball there, and Havertz letting him roam. And I guess Havertz had one of his good games. Like, though the result showed 0-0, and I guess the fair result, it was a 0-0 game, but then there was good tactical identity on what we wanted to see. They were attacking those half spaces. They were having this positional build up, and it's too much to look into it. We don't know if there are like super optimistic signs, or it's just because they didn't score, it's a super pessimistic sign. So, but then that's a good thing for starters, right? So I guess he's the manager who knows how to, build a best system for the squad he is in right now. And I guess that's what Chelsea needs, more than having an idea or having a tactical plan and building the players to this, which is going to take massive time. And I don't think Chelsea is going to give them this time. He is known for the manager. He's known as a manager who can build a system around the tools he has right now and maximize them to the full potential. So I guess that's the best. That's the sign we need to look forward for the rest of the season. And let's see where they go from next transfer window.
Yeah, we'll see. I think mostly he'll go for a squad build. It's actually very fascinating that 18-month length contract has really fascinated me, because Chelsea's used to giving out 3-4 years contracts. So 18 months is something fascinating.
I guess
So
they have an
it's
option
going
to
to be a fascinating scenario.
extend it
Yeah,
for one more
they
year.
do. They do.
So I guess the guaranteed one is just 18 months.
Yeah, it's just very unusual of Chelsea. So I think this narrative is something I'm very fascinated to see because one, Chelsea should be considered a dangerous squad from now. Two is that with his history of past arguments with our friction with the board and with this Chelsea board and the contract length as well. So it'll be very interesting. This Chelsea narrative is promising to be interesting.
So I guess we'll finally end this with our little known predictions on how Tuchel's career is going to go at Chelsea, right? So what do you think is going to happen for the rest of the season and probably the next year as well?
Um, I think it's going to go well. I think the rest of the season is going to go well. Actually, I think his tenure here is going to go well because I really like Tuchel, and that's something that's worrying me, to be honest. Because for the time being, at least Chelsea was below there, so we were not really thinking about Chelsea that much as a rival for a top four. But Tuchel coming in is kind of a warning sign for Premier League. Chelsea is not done yet. But I think they will make. I still don't think they'll make the top four. I think they will be in the top six. We gave up top four predictions obviously last week, so I don't think there's any changes to that. Like I still believe that Chelsea won't make the top four. So yeah, I think. But overall, I think his tenure is going to be successful for the next 18 months in terms of squad building or in terms of trophies. So I know generally we have an attitude to seeing winning trophies as a sign of success, but somebody like Tuchel or there are different varying parameters to check how much of a success he was, and he has been successful wherever he has gone, according to me at least. So I say with Chelsea he's going to be two.
Yeah, I that's an interesting point because I don't know if he's necessarily gonna win any win the league next year but I do believe that he has a good chance of winning a league with the squad and with the players buying into the system. So I guess this is gonna be a good sign. But the main interesting thing comes in the next transfer window, right? Is Chelsea really gonna
Yeah.
invest a lot of money, or is Chelsea gonna say we have done a lot, just enough is enough, just go do whatever you can with this thing? So that's when this real problem rises, right? So I don't know if it's going to be any different from his previous three stints. So I guess he's going to have a decent resume when he leaves Chelsea, but I guess he's going to have another clash with board because Chelsea is just like all those other boards, if not worse. So that's where I stand on it. Like I know he has chances of winning trophies, but then I don't know if he's going to be the long-term manager for Chelsea. So that's where I end this conversation. So we have come to this end of this episode where we had a detailed discussion on both Lampard's tenure and what we can expect from Tuchel in his Chelsea days. So this is actually an exciting time for Premier League football with another great tactical manager coming into this league with already an incredible number of tacticians there in the league right now. I guess it's going to be another competitive era in the Premier League. We are very much excited for that, and let's see how Tuchel's career goes in Chelsea. And follow us on YouTube as well. We have the link in the description, so please follow us on YouTube, subscribe there, and give us a follow on our social media platforms. Thanks, guys, and stay safe.